this week's episode of OAKS Online. I'm Hannah.
And I'm Emma.
And we're going to be your hosts this week.
You may be noticing that I am not Alice. Alice, as you know, and Becca went off to university, didn't they?
Yes,
after the last
they did,
episode.
Yeah.
I've heard from Alice.
I've seen Becca.
Okay,
yeah.
Alice is doing well, she said.
Yeah.
She misses us, she said, which was nice.
Yeah.
But she seems to be settled. How's
Yeah.
Becca doing?
Becca seems really settled. She seems like she's got a lot of good flatmates, and she just seems to be like enjoying it a lot.
Oh,
she is missing us as well, but
obviously.
Yeah, obviously. Who couldn't?
Yeah. But that's really good, isn't it, to know that they're there.
Amazing.
So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to hearing from them. We said we'll try and do like a Zoom or something with them. Yeah, get them on the camera again. This weekend that's just gone, it was one of our celebration meetings. Now, you weren't able to be there, because you were off seeing Becca.
Yeah.
But I was there. And I'll tell you, it was really, really
good. Oh, that's good.
I really enjoyed it. It felt... it was inside, which is one of the first ones. We've had one inside, I think, before, but I don't think I was at that one either. It's holiday time, isn't it? But it was really good. It felt like family being back together again. I can't explain it other than that. So I'm really looking forward to more of those in the future.
Yeah.
We've got a few notices now, I believe, and this might be a QVT moment with John, as we've got some updates from Sharon about the book exchange that's been happening in Eckington, an update from Julia. I think I'm even featuring on there again about Impact Sundays. I know, it could be anything with John, couldn't it? And then we're going to hear from Janet all about Restore. So we'll move on to those now.
QVT.
We know that people are still struggling with the sort of direction we're going, and that we're not going to be meeting every Sunday. And, it wasn't an easy decision, but we felt that was what God was telling us to do for this time. But I just want to reassure you that we are still the same people. Our mission statement is the same, which is knowing Jesus and making him known. And it's about us being disciples and discipling our world, whatever that might be. It might be our family, our local community, our schools, our workplaces. So that's not changed. The only thing that's changed really is that we're not meeting every single Sunday. And what we've been trying to encourage people to do during lockdown when we couldn't meet was to get together in small groups, belonging groups, connect groups where they've continued. And that has been happening quite well in some places, not well in others. And it is a really difficult time because some people are very uncertain about meeting indoors, and there's just still a lot of uncertainty, as Fran was saying, about where we're going. But I just wanted to just show you some of the things that we've been doing, because we've not just kind of taken stuff away. We've been trying to put things in, build things in, so that we can be more effective in our own personal discipling journey and our corporate discipling activities. So we've been trying to put things in place to make it easier for us individually and corporately to bring Jesus into our community. So I'm hoping that kind of clarifies some of the reason that we're doing the things we're doing. And it's not kind of you must work harder, must try harder. We want to be in that kind of that sort of rhythm of grace. We don't want to be burdening people. We want to be people walking alongside God, with the Holy Spirit directing those conversations, those actions. We don't want people trying harder, but we want you to develop your own relationship with God, so you're hearing his Spirit when he's saying, just give them a ring, just pop next door, just do whatever. So I hope that is helpful.
Okay, we have our first Impact Sunday coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm looking at Linda. If I have missed anything, will you let me know? I just want to give a small update on what exactly that is. Obviously, it's different for Dronfield and Eckington, so if you are part of the Eckington congregation and you want to know more details specifically for that one, chat to the Eckington CLT. The one in Dronfield, though, will focus on the environment this time. Our Impact Sundays are where we shift our focus onto how to love and serve each other and our communities. So we want to try and do an environmental one at least once a year. I think that was the decision we were taking, maybe more. We'll start with worship at 10:30 a.m. The meeting did start at 10:30 today, but as you know, we had refreshments and things. But with the Impact ones, we'll get straight in with worship at 10:30. And then you'll be able to choose from 3 options. 1, a litter pick, self-explanatory. Don't need to go into that. 2, a craft, which I hear Gwen left you all in suspense last time. I will give a bit more detail on that. Basically, we're looking at how to be creative. We are created by God, and we are called to be creative. So on this one, we'll be repurposing plastic bags. Gwen is so incredibly talented at all things creative. She's shown us some of the stuff, and they look so good, don't they? So if you're like really talented at this sort of stuff and you crochet and all of it, bring a crochet hook. If you're not, if you're like me and don't know anything about craft but want to give it a go, just come, because she's got literally something for everyone. We're hoping we'll be able to give those to people, and it'll create good conversation, which I'll maybe share a bit of, if that's okay, in a minute. But I'll carry on with my notice first. Thirdly, a seminar. I was hoping Karen Taylor would be here today, but she isn't. But she'll be running that seminar on how to be good stewards. Again, I don't know exactly what she's going to be talking on, because as with all speakers, we've given her free rein in that area. All we know is it will be interactive. I'm sure she'll do a great job. These will run for about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Obviously, the litter pick might take slightly longer. So we'll have refreshments, and then we'll come back together and share what we've been doing and what's available in our community already to get involved in. I'm looking at people. We've already hopefully primed a few that are going to come up and chat about that at that one. The Impact Sundays, as I said at the beginning, will look different in both locations and each time, because we want to make sure we're covering really important topics. So the one in November, for instance, will be on mental health. This is something that I don't even think we can grasp the size of with what's happened with COVID. So we want to make sure we're getting a good Christian perspective on that as we navigate that muddy water. So we're getting the mental health nurse that came and did the pastoral network training. A few of you might have met him before. He's going to come and do a session that day. So again, we'll hear about what's already available in our community that you can get involved in and point people to. It's just going to be, a minefield that going forward. As I said, we'll always start by worshipping together. If you want to make suggestions on what to cover on an Impact Sunday, on what you think our community, we got some great feedback on the questionnaire, but not as much as we perhaps would have liked. So if you come up with any ideas, chat to one of us. For the Dronfield CLT, that's myself, Gwen, Linda, Sammy or Robin. For the Eckington one, it's David, Charlotte, Sharon, Steve and Richard. For December, again, we'll have our Impact Sunday in December, and think carol singing for you crazy folk that like to go out and do that. I will not be doing that. That's my worst nightmare. Cannot imagine anything worse than going out on the street and singing, but I know that some people enjoy that. Oh, Fran's with me. Fran's, yeah. Whew, scary stuff. We're going to make mince pies and give them to neighbours. We're going to hopefully have something on the true meaning of Christmas. There's going to be something for everyone that we can invite people to that, but again, as I said, for Eckington, chat to your CLT. I'm also really, really enjoying my belonging group. I want to say that because I hear you shared about that at the last celebration. I wasn't here, but I love it. I love them all. I've started bird watching in lockdown. The secret is out. I am a middle-aged woman at heart. Everybody knows it. And Fran and John and Ruth, we went to Potterick Car with them last weekend, and Luke got some fantastic pictures. I don't know if we've got those to show people, Luke, but if anyone wants to chat to him, he's the guy on the fungi because he knows it all, and it's fantastic. And sorry, Luke, you probably don't want everyone to know that, but join me as a middle-aged person at heart. It's fine. So I've just loved it during lockdown, and we've got varying different people who are comfortable with different things in our group. We've got people that are happy to meet inside, some that aren't, so we're doing lots of different things, and that's great and such a flavour of church.
This is Book Exchange, and we've started doing this during lockdown, mainly as the church was closed, just to basically say hi to the community, so that we'd show that we're still here as a church. And it's just took off incredibly. We have probably around 50 people every week come, everything from children right through to the older generation. We have quite a few volunteers that are church people like Mary and Sylvia and Jean, and we also have other people like Brian and Diane who have just helped that are from the community, which is really good. So what we do is people come along, they bring books, and they also take books away, and also jigsaws. And if we've got opportunity to be able to talk to people, that's what we do. And it's just incredible, really, the opportunities that we're getting within this community, and there's different people come every single week. And what we do is we have it outside, as you can see. It's a glorious October day, and we're actually outside still. And the reason we do it outside was it started off in lockdown. Obviously we couldn't use the building, but we continue to do that because actually the doors to the lighthouse can be a barrier to people just coming and having a look at what we've got available. So we just find that being outside, people glance at it, people drive past and they come and have a look, and they come every week. Some people come absolutely every week just to see what we have. But we do find that when we have it indoors, we don't have as many people. So it's just a brilliant opportunity to be able to serve the community and reach out. This is what's impacting our community, and this is what we want to see more and more of.
I've got a London City view. I get it done in about 4 to 6 hours.
Really?
Yeah,
And how
You're
often
gonna-
do you come?
every week.
And why do you come every week?
So that I can get a jigsaw done in at least 4 hours.
Excellent. And what's the hardest one you've done so far?
Probably the 500-piece one.
I think it was actually Jean's idea to have, as well as the books, was to have jigsaws.
This is Jean.
Yeah, well, in the winter, a lot of people who can't get out because of the weather like to do jigsaws, but they can be quite expensive to buy, and you can get them from charity shops, but it's first come, first served, so they weren't always available. So when Sharon was doing books, I suggested that we decided to do jigsaws as well. And Sharon said yes, it was a good idea. And so she put out word to the church members, and as you can see, we have a wonderful selection.
Yeah.
People take them and bring them back when they've done them.
Excellent.
And it's a nice thing to talk to people about.
Yeah.
They stop and look at the puzzles and then discuss other things or the pictures on the puzzles. It's just a nice topic to talk to people
Yeah.
about. And it seems to be appreciated
Yes.
by the children as well as the adults.
I know, I've just been talking to some of the kids. They're really excited
Yes.
about it.
Oh, that's Oscar. He comes
Oh,
every
well,
week.
I know, he's just been
Yes.
telling me.
Yes, he comes
I
every
think that's
week.
been one of the really lovely things. We've seen children coming along who have perhaps not even done very few jigsaws, and suddenly start looking at the pictures, doing jigsaws, bringing them back the next week. It's been lovely to see them develop and then go into the bigger size jigsaws. That's just a real pleasure to see them do that and
Yeah.
develop as well. So it's a really nice side to
That's
it.
brilliant. Thank you.
So Janet, what is Restore?
Restore is a community food service, is its correct title.
Nice.
Do you know what that is, Jack?
Not really. What do you do at Restore?
Okay. Well, basically we collect food from supermarkets, which is short dated, which the supermarkets would otherwise throw away. So we're kind of combating food waste. We also have a delivery of food from a company called Fair Share, and again that's short dated food that would otherwise go to waste. We gather all of that food together, and then on a Thursday morning we give out bags of food to people who come, basically. So they pay £1, they turn up with their shopping bag, and they get a selection of the food that we've got available.
So Hannah and I have been to Restore, haven't we?
We have,
We've
yeah.
been on the door,
Yeah.
chatting to people. So we might know a bit more than everybody else, but what could you tell us a bit more about the vision for Restore?
Okay, yeah. Well, I first kind of got the vision for Restore really by visiting a similar project in Chesterfield about 2 years ago now. There's a little tiny church in Grassmore that were running something similar on a much smaller scale than we're doing. But I just felt that, you know, it was amazing, and it was something that people in Dronfield could benefit from, that it would help us combat food waste. So it has two aims really. The first one is combating food waste, but the second one is feeding the hungry, so helping people who are on a low income, might be struggling, you know, to buy food for the family. It just gives them that little bit extra, probably enough food to make 2 or 3 meals from. So it gives people that little bit extra to help them through the week and help the money go a bit further.
So can anyone come to Restore, or do you have to qualify in some way or anything like that?
No, nobody needs to qualify in any way at all. Anybody can come. So if you want to combat food waste, or you feel that you need that little bit of extra help, then you can just turn up and register on a Thursday morning and then come each week. It costs £1. That's not for the cost of the food, because we don't pay for any food, but we do have to pay for our big food order to be delivered. So that £1 simply covers the delivery cost, that's all. So everybody pays £1. We encourage people to bring their own bags, so we're not creating lots of extra waste in giving out lots of plastic bags. But if you forget your bag, we'll give you one anyway. That's not a problem. So yeah, come with £1, a shopping bag, and you can have a selection of food.
Nice.
You got any more questions, Jack? What did we have down? What was the next one?
We've done most of them. Oh, but how long have you been doing Restore now?
How long have we been doing it? Well, we started it in January 2020, so I reckon that's probably 20 months.
Wow.
And it's been interesting. I think it was really good that we did start in January, because obviously last March, 2 months in, we went into lockdown and we had to completely change the way we did things. We couldn't allow people to come in and choose their food, so we were having to pack parcels for them and then just give them the bag back when it was full of food. Lots of people actually really liked that, and kind of it became known as the mystery shop, and they went home quite excited to find out what was in the bag, so that worked really well. But over the last few weeks we've started letting people come back in, so they can now choose what type of vegetables they want, for instance, or you know, what meat or dairy options we've got on offer. So they've got a little bit more choice as to what food they get.
It's grown. I mean, I've been doing it since the beginning, I think, and you joined in lockdown.
Yeah.
But even since you did it with us, it's grown a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah, so many more people come in.
And I was just thinking then, like, it'd be good to share with everybody how we've, like, afforded to get extra fridges and free, because obviously there's a storage problem, isn't there? When you're gathering all this food everywhere, you might have seen it's on the doorsteps often, bread and things. But what have we done? What physical changes have we made to the building to encompass Restore?
Oh, we've taken over quite a few rooms upstairs. So we've now got 3 storerooms. One's got freezers in it. We've got I think we've got 7 freezers in total. 2 of which are new. We were given a big grant from a company called Vistry, who have got a local building project. They phoned me completely out of the blue and said, we'd like to give you some money. Wow. You know, what would you like to do with it? So we used that for buying freezers with. We've got another room that's got fridges in it, and then we've got a 3rd room. So we've got quite a lot of shelving for tinned and packet goods and that sort of stuff. So.
But people are always amazed when we chat to them on the door about, like, that we're not in this for money. I think they don't, you know, it's quite hard to grasp that actually, because like you said, the money covers the delivery costs, but everything else has been by generous donations, hasn't it? By people in church and, like you said, people outside of church. So it's good to just
people like Rotary. Rotary have been really good. They've been really helpful. They've donated us money. They donated us one of our fridges. They've paid for people to do food hygiene course. They've been great, you know, just supporting the local community. So,
yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Janet, and thank you for all you do, and you know, all the volunteers that are involved in it. It's like week in, week out, even all throughout lockdown. It's carried on, hasn't it? You haven't missed a single week.
We haven't, no. Even Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve, we ran.
Yeah.
It's hard work, but it's good fun as well. I think the team that are doing it really enjoy it. So
well, we do.
I hope they do.
We've enjoyed chatting to everybody. We're kept out the way downstairs, just registering people and doing, and that is lovely to see people, especially in lockdown when like you weren't seeing anybody. It was really
absolutely
good, so.
All right. So can anyone help out at Restore, or do they volunteer? Or
yeah, we've got quite a few volunteers. Some of them are from the church. We've got people in the community who come and help us. So yeah, we're actually looking for some extra volunteers at the moment because we're about to reopen our cafe, which will happen down here. So there's always opportunity for people to come and help and get involved. If you want to volunteer, the best way probably is to get in touch through our Facebook page or to email Emma or me, and we'll have a chat with you and see what you'd like to do.
So we're opening the cafe this week.
We're opening the cafe this week, 7th of October.
Yeah.
So people will be coming in for a cup of tea or a coffee and just an opportunity to chat, really.
Yeah.
So even if you don't feel that you can do very much, but you're just happy to sit and chat with people, you know, that's as important as giving out the food.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can come along and do that.
Brilliant.
Sounds great.
Doesn't it? I enjoy sitting in the warmth in a cafe rather than outside, but
having a chat.
It makes me think I'll still be outside on the door giving out, registering people. Love it. No, I've enjoyed doing that in lockdown. As you know, seeing people has just been so good.
Yeah.
Even when you're in the real, you think back to when it was really locked down, you weren't allowed out. You were still allowed to do the key workers, and it was classed as key work. So
it was
we
classed
literally
as
just went all the way through.
Essential projects, and we carried right through. But
That's good.
Well, thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
It's been very helpful to understand a bit more and hopefully share with others who maybe didn't know what Restore was all about. So we look forward to seeing where this goes in the future.
Yeah. Watch this space. Thank you very much.
Wow, a lot to get to grips with there in the
Yeah.
notices.
We're now going to be moving on to the hot topic with Emma, Charlotte and Julia about forgiving others.
Welcome to this week's hot topic, which is what did Jesus say about forgiving others? Which, if you joined us for the last episode, you might be thinking, well, isn't that what we did last time? But no, it's just slightly different. We did forgiveness last time, but we're focusing in on what did Jesus say about forgiving others. And we have Charlotte with us.
Hello.
Welcome, Charlotte. Hello.
Thanks.
We're also doing it a bit different this week because we're not showing your talk in any frame. We're just going to unpack with you. Yeah. So tell us, how did you go about tackling this topic? How did you go about preparing for it, and why did you choose to do what you did?
Sounds so very mysterious, doesn't it? What did you do?
Yeah.
I was kind of looking at the Bible, and we talked about the Gospels before, the kind of Jesus' life, and there's one of his disciples, his close friends, Peter. It kind of follows his story through the Bible and through the Gospels, and he was kind of a really good example of what it looked like to have forgiveness and to experience that forgiveness of others, because Jesus had to forgive him a few times. He wasn't the best friend at times, so it was just kind of almost a character study, just kind of seeing his journey all the way through, of how he interacted with Jesus and what that relationship was like.
Yeah. So if you want to watch the whole talk, you can watch that on our YouTube channel. But as I said, we're just going to unpack it a bit today. So, Julia, what did you think? We've had a sneak peek again, as always.
I enjoyed the fact that you focused on Peter, or one character, and that you can actually follow the life, particularly if you dip in and out of the different Gospels. It's really interesting to see the character of somebody as it pans out in those 3 years when they were with Jesus and then beyond. So I enjoyed that aspect. And Peter in particular is a really interesting guy, really kind of sort of strong-willed in a way, a bit feisty, jumps in there. People tend to think he kind of jumps in before he opens his mouth, but actually he's quite courageous and he's quite humble at times as well. So yeah, I enjoyed that kind of focus.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not bad all the time.
No.
It just have some good bits
And
too.
just like us.
Yeah.
But what we forget though, we forget when we read these stories in the Bible that they were really young.
Yeah.
They were like
young men.
really young, and that helps to appreciate their character flaws, I feel, because they're quite impulsive and almost a bit, I want to use the word stupid at times, the disciples, but it's helpful because it gives me comfort in the fact that when they make these decisions, I have made mistakes, and it's so amazing that Jesus like models that with them on how to bring on young people and how to, well, not just bring on young people, but how to forgive people for the trivial things as well as the big things. Because like you said, he's not a great friend at times. So I just think, you explain it really well, how Jesus models forgiveness to us in those
I think
stories.
it's just because it shows that Jesus like always stuck next to them and didn't, after one instance of a mistake was like, no, see you later. He was like, right, I'm going to work at this with you, and it's a partnership, and we're going to do this relationship together. I think it's really special.
Yeah, because forgiving others, you can't really stay in good relationship with people if you aren't willing to forgive them, because people are going to let you down. Let's be honest, we're not good, are we?
We have our moments.
Yeah. So other times when I'm trying to think, other times when Jesus modelled this to us, even in greater deep pain, though. We're not talking just trivial things today. We're going to hopefully get a bit real with each other, a bit vulnerable as we do. But like even before we were ready to film this today, we were discussing it between us, and it was mentioned about Jesus being on the cross, and how even as he was like dying on the cross, he says like, forgive these people that are doing this to me, because they don't know what they're doing. Like to put yourself in that frame of mind. I'm not sure if I was being crucified, I would want to forgive the people that were doing that to me. It's radical. It's absolutely radical.
Yeah. Right in the heat of the moment.
It's hard to think of yourself in that position, isn't it? If you were, I don't know, it's hard because we can't, in our culture, we can't comprehend what it would be like to be on a cross, because we don't have that. But if you're in pain, you're about to die. To think that that's your final thought is seeking for that relationship and saying, look, this is my last ditch attempt to build this relationship. It's quite a lot.
It's humbling, to say the least.
So why is forgiveness so important? Why do we need to forgive each other?
I think you mentioned this in your talk, but about unforgiveness. So I said I would say unforgiveness is like poison, because it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. That's a saying, isn't it? Because we now know, like from science, that unforgiveness is bad for you. So can lead to like bitterness, and we would talk about fruit, wouldn't we, of things. So like a seed of unforgiveness would perhaps plant in us and produce fruit, and the fruit of unforgiveness, bitterness, anger. I mean, if you can think of any more, shout them out. 'Cause that's resentment, yes. So why is forgiveness so important? I would perhaps hold up the mirror there as to, well, if you don't forgive, unforgiveness leads to those things. So it's not always necessarily for the person who's done the hurting. It's for you, because it robs you of so much life that Jesus doesn't want you to be robbed of. That's certainly been my experience of forgiving.
I always think of it as certainly unforgiveness when somebody's hurt you. I mean, I understand it's a choice, and it can be really hard, but it is a choice. It's a choice of will. And so when we sometimes say, I can't forgive them, that's actually not true. But it's a choice, but there's still a journey in there, and it's not going to be necessarily easy. But I always think for unforgiveness, particularly through a lifetime, it's a bit like building a wall. And each time something happens and you let it go, or don't deal with it, or don't forgive, it's like laying another brick in the wall. And eventually you kind of got this wall around you. And it becomes impenetrable. And it's interesting when you start on your Christian journey, and I think God starts to dismantle that wall, or even it starts to show you that wall is there. And it's like a load of hurt. And what you can often see, and I've seen it in people I know that struggle with forgiveness, is that they get hurt, they choose to ignore it, accept it, that another brick on the wall. And then something happens, and it's like a tsunami. It's like years of pain come.
Yeah.
Because it's never been dealt with. It doesn't go away. That's the thing, does it? That pain doesn't go away. It just builds and builds.
Just like
and
a
builds and builds.
festering wound.
Yeah.
And these things can be, I remember, like for me, they might, obviously there are things in life that are done to you that are wrong, and like that's obviously a very hard thing to forgive. But as in, there might be some times in life where you're hurt and the other person might not even realise what they've done, or I mean, it might have been years ago where, like in school particularly, like someone said and it wasn't very kind, but to you it's lasted and it's like stayed in your mind and whatever. I'm sure we've probably all got examples that we could illustrate with that. And it's like, actually, like you said, Julia, when you first embark on sort of accepting Jesus and learning that actually you need to forgive those things, it's like, wow, that led to this, led to this, led to this. And it's like, now if somebody prods that wound, even though it's not even, I remember someone else, there's so many good analogies with this, but someone once explained it to me as like, if you threw a stone at a window, it's like that's the original point of entry is there, but then actually it like cracks the window and like goes and makes lots of little branches. And if you don't, you know, you can forgive that hole that went through, you can maybe forgive that one, but you've got to get all the little cracks as well. And it's so difficult. I mean, this is not an easy topic.
No. I wish it was. I wish it was a click your fingers, job
same,
done, sorted. Yeah. But yeah, I think you're right, and it's a lot to carry as well. Like, you know, to go retract the memories and think, oh yeah, they said that to me, and go over it and over it and over it.
Yeah.
It ends up being quite a lot to. It's a lot of like physical, mental energy to carry as well. I think sometimes.
And it's not. I mean, I think culture nowadays is forgiving in some senses, like, as in, like what we talked about earlier, the science behind it. We would know now that unforgiveness is really bad, and they've found like connections with arthritis and things to forgiveness. Like, it's that crazy.
Your body's physical reaction
to carrying it. But also, we mentioned something earlier which Julia didn't necessarily know, did you, about like cancel culture now?
Well, I understand it. I hadn't appreciated it.
So,
Go on, Shah, you explain what cancel culture is.
I think the simplest way to explain it is that if a particular celebrity does something from years ago, it's not even like necessarily a recent thing, it could be, you know, a tweet or, you know, something that's been put out there in the public sphere, that would now, with, you know, how we've developed in our awareness of racism and homophobia and all like those sort of things, that often things from 10 years ago get dragged up again, somehow found, and, you know, people are like on at them, and it's like, to be fair, that was wrong, yes it was wrong, but that was, you know, 10 years ago. They maybe didn't understand like we do now about issues like racism and homophobia. There's loads of other things, but basically what happens is that their careers often end. Like, there's no forgiveness there from something that happened 10 years ago where they were younger, you know, but not as aware, self-aware.
I was going to say, that even if they did know back then, but they were not very nice back then, it's really hard. Like, if they've changed now, how do you...
To bring that back.
Yeah, because it's literally happened with so many celebrities, hasn't it, where they might have been a totally different person back then, but because it's in the public sphere, it's out there. And like, would I want to be measured against my actions 10 years ago when I was 15? Probably not. But in 30 years' time, that could, because everything's so public now, that could like be held against you. It's such a muddy world in terms of forgiveness nowadays. Then I don't know how you navigate that.
No. It's hard. It's definitely like something else to think about, isn't it? It's like, you can't just, I'll put this up because, not like I want to put this up, and, you know, I think this is great, but then you don't know, this is okay now, but in so many years' time you might actually look back and think,
Yeah.
hang on a second.
And we've
It's
touched
not.
on this in so many, in like multiple episodes already, because it is just something that is so important to being a Christian. It's so vital that we get forgiveness and we forgive others as we have been forgiven, because it's so radical how Jesus lived.
Yeah.
But we spoke about how people would perhaps think a leopard can't change its spots and all of that, but actually Jesus' whole gospel is about transformation and about, you know, us being able to, despite our shortcomings and our gross character flaws, being able to come to the foot of the cross and just sit there, and Jesus took all of that on himself when he died on the cross. It's absolutely like unfathomable, really, to talk about. It's hard to even put into words, because yeah, you don't perhaps deserve to be forgiven for something. I might have said something at school to somebody and they might have held on to that and I don't even remember it, and that's the worst kind of thing, because probably that has happened, because we're all human and we've all hurt people. And I'm like, I hope I can be forgiven for something like that, you know, where I've hurt someone and I've not even appreciated how that has affected that person. It's like so difficult to, I really hope that can happen. But yeah, I mean, cancel culture is crazy.
Yeah.
It lacks grace, doesn't it?
Yes.
I think that's the...
Well, that's the beautiful thing about forgiveness, isn't it? That's what it is. It's grace, because no matter what we've done, whether we're the most like well-behaved, never broke the law, never did anything human. We talked about this last week. Good. How good is good enough? Well, not, basically, because you can't live a perfect life.
No.
You just can't.
No. And that's what like is interesting about my talk, like mention it, and you know, we kind of come to the end of my talk and I say that, you know, Jesus asks Peter, do you love me? And it's like ultimately that's the question, is in any, I think early relationships, like it's not necessarily romantic love, but you know, do you want this to work? And I think if you do, then you need to put that effort in, because otherwise it's just, do you know what I mean? Like if you want to save that relationship, then someone's got to make that first step and be brave and say, look, you know, do you want to continue this?
That is one side of the forgiving others.
Yeah.
So if you're in a friendship or a relationship with someone and they hurt you, and it's almost like you say, you want to keep that relationship going, you're going to have to forgive them, otherwise it's not going to work. But that's not just what Jesus says about forgiving others. It's not just people who he has a relationship with, which you also touch on about him forgiving strangers and things, which I always find really radical with Jesus in the Gospels, if you read them, because half the time the people aren't even asking for forgiveness, and he wanders around. This is a bit of a tangent, I suppose, because it's not really relevant to this, but he just wanders around like, your sins are forgiven, your sins are forgiven. And it's so weird for us. We don't understand how radical that was, because back then, he did not, in the eyes of people back then, he didn't have the authority to forgive sins. Only God had the authority to forgive sins, and there was a specific way about going about that. So while we can just brush over those things and say, oh, well, he just forgave that person because we know now that he does have the authority, back then that was crazy.
Yeah. And even again, going back to like you were saying about the arthritis stuff, there's, I mean, I don't know if it's linked at all, but there is in the Bible it talks about Jesus forgiving someone who couldn't walk. And he goes, doesn't even talk about healing them, like, you know, making them walk. He just goes, yeah, you're forgiven. And he gets up and walks. And you just think,
so there's some
what's
sort
that
of
about?
correlation. There's some sort of link to
it's
healing,
freedom, isn't it?
Freedom,
Freedom, a bit of freedom.
Yeah.
Because I think that unforgiveness, it binds us up. It's that wall again. It binds us up. I don't think we realise, and we don't realise how much it affects us.
Yeah.
It affects our decisions and affects the way we relate to people and affects the way we respond to things.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I feel like it's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So it's quite a journey, isn't it? I think, you know, like I said, it's not, you can't just click your fingers in, it's disappears. It's quite a journey of acknowledging hurt, really, isn't it? Unforgiveness is hurt.
Yeah.
So you're having to like work through that, and it's hard to recognise that your friend or, you know, someone you love has hurt you. That's also
I was
quite
trying
a big
to
step,
think, is
isn't
that
it?
worse though? That's what I was trying to just mull over in my head. I was trying to think, is it worse if someone I love hurts me, or is it worse if a total
sort of stranger did something that affected my life. Like, there are awful atrocities that happen to people, you know, abuse that happens within families and you know, whatever, loads of awful things. And I was trying to equate, like, would I find it harder to forgive, you know, someone who was close to me than, because there are times, I mean, I think you mentioned it when we were chatting about this before, when we were preparing, about someone who forgave someone for murdering. Was that right? Go on,
it was the Inniskillen bombing years ago. I think that might have been in the late 70s or 80s. And the father, there was a young woman murdered. Lots of people died in that bombing. It was the times of the IRA and the real difficulties with Ireland. And a daughter, a young woman, was killed in that bombing, and her dad, who was a Christian, immediately, literally that day, stood in front of the cameras and spoke forgiveness to the bombers.
Wow.
And I mean, it was such an amazing example, and it goes back to that choice. And I'm not saying that it was an easy thing for him to do, but he knew the teachings of Jesus. He did it, and he probably had to do it every day for the rest of his life. But he just went on to do amazing work with reconciliation between Northern Ireland and all the problems there. And that was an amazing contemporary example.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, whether I've noticed it more as a Christian, but when something awful has happened and you hear it on the news, somebody's been murdered or something, I always find it more heartbreaking when perhaps it's a parent and they've lost a child and they always say, I'll never forgive them, or I can't forgive them, because you just think they're locked in that pain forever. Yeah. They'll never get through that. And it's like double the pain of losing someone, and then that unforgiveness on top.
I think it's important, like, we're not trying to diminish that at all, are we, in this discussion? Like, it's not like, it'll be fine, don't worry about it at all, because, you know, like you were saying, to forgive someone who's murdered your child is a lot.
Horrendous.
And I'm sure even, you know, you're never going to get that child back. Like, you know, there's always going to be that pain there. I think it's just that it's maybe not as much. Like, if you've let it go a little bit, you can at least, like you say, you're not locked in that initial space of hurt.
It's just the bitterness thing, I think. Like, when I've heard amazing testimonies like that. There was one at the Baptist, a lady that went to the Baptist a few years ago to one of the Extraordinary Women conference things. It's a lady from Sheffield, and I think it was her husband that was murdered, so it's kind of similar situation, and she's like the same. And you listen to the story and you can't, as someone who's never been through something like that, you can't fathom how she has the strength to do that. But I think the point is, she doesn't have the strength to do that. She can only do that with God, and she knows that, you know, he's right there with her in it, in the mess, and it's not his will for her husband to be murdered or for that daughter to be murdered. And I think it's not about letting people off the hook for these things. There's a justice system, and that should be followed, and there should be justice. God is a just God. So it's not that you just let people off for these things. You know, if it was someone that, like, you were close to, for instance, that trust would be definitely damaged. And if that person hurt you, wouldn't just go back to being, you know, how you were before. That would not be wise. This is not. I think sometimes as Christians, we can get in this cycle of like, well, I've got to just forgive them. I can't, you know, I must just forgive. I can't let that bother me. I've got to just carry on regardless, kind of thing. But that's not what Jesus taught or modelled. You know, the trust needs to be rebuilt, or if it was a horrific situation like that, there needs to be the justice system followed, as in they go to prison for the crime or whatever. So it's not that, we're advocating that you just swan about your life like, I'm just going to forgive, and because that's just the opposite of forgiveness, really, because then you're just glossing over it. And it's just not helpful. But just in what you were both saying then about choosing every day to forgive, it reminded me of The Shack, which is a book and a film, so you can watch it or read it. It's a fictional thing, isn't it? It's not real, but it's very raw.
It's about this guy and his daughter goes missing, and he ends up meeting God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit in a shack. That's why it's called the shack. Spoiler. And he, in the story, it's awful, and I remember just crying reading it. But he says in that, like, you know, to God, like, I can't, or something, I'm ad-libbing here, so bear with, but I can't forgive the person that's taken my daughter. And you know, the image of God in the book is brilliant, because God just says to him, well, you know, that's okay, just choose every day to say it, like say it every single day until it's easier. You know, lay that burden on me. Just say, I choose to forgive. I choose to forgive. And that has always stuck with me. I read that, like, when I first sort of became a Christian. I don't even know if I was a Christian when I read it. Someone gave it me. Classic Christians, giving you books to read, honestly. And they just gave it to me. I was like, read this. And it just really impacted me, that bit, because I've had to do that sometimes in my life, where I've struggled to forgive things that have happened, and you know, I might still not really feel like I've forgiven them, but I've woken up and I've been like, no, today I choose to forgive, and tomorrow I'll choose to forgive, and the next day I'll choose to forgive until I feel I can safely say it. It's not an easy process to go through, but I feel that, so if you haven't read that book or watched the film,
Recommend it.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll pop a link on the resources page.
To help with this situation, if you're struggling with forgiveness particularly.
I think it just really hits the heart of Christianity, really, isn't it? It's about relationship. You know, we were designed for relationships, so I think, yeah, the shack is a great example of that, like seeking that relationship and pursuing it, and really sticking in the hard bits, and, you know, really sticking together with God and with the Holy Spirit and Jesus and like your friends and stuff like that.
Well, the friends thing is an interesting one, because so we've spoke about some very deep things today that are hard, and if that's something that's happened to you, then obviously do talk to someone you trust and get help with forgiving those people. But if in everyday life, if we just talk about like practical applications to sort of close, I think it's harder to do those little things, and because Jesus talks about forgiveness 70 times 7 or 77 times, whatever it is, different translations. But how do we find this? Let's just unpack that to close. How do we find this? How do we find this practically in our lives, forgiving people regularly?
If it's the same person.
Yeah, or just like, you know, if you don't forgive people in your life, you're going to be very lonely, because people are going to let you down, aren't they? Like they are. Like, I'm not talking the big things, just generally the little things. It's going to happen. It happens a lot. You've got to, you know, if you come from a point of, well, if somebody hurts me, I'm going to cancel them, cancel culture, then we're probably never going to have deep, meaningful relationships, because it's just going to happen, isn't it?
I think for me it's important, like, to again seek that relationship, so go to them and saying, look, can I understand why did that happen on your perspective, and understand where they're coming from as well in it all, and try and like talk about, which again is not easy. Like, none of this is easy, is it? But you know, take that step and say, can we try and figure this out? You know, for me, I find it easier to forgive someone when I've understood their side of it.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, that's just how I find it easy. If I can understand a bit more about them.
So you like to go, like, get into their head and find out. I don't think I'd think about that. I'm just like, I need to do it.
But that's just, I think, you know, how I prefer to do. Yeah, understand why, their perspective of what.
Yeah. So you sort of have to like reconcile their decision to forgive them in that sense. Yeah, I know what you mean. What about you?
I suppose it depends what it is and when it is. I mean, sometimes God's reminded me or made me aware of perhaps some unforgiveness from donkeys years ago, and the person might be well dead, or, you know, a teacher or something, and I hadn't realised there was still a kind of a barb there. And so, you know, on those occasions, you just kind of give it to God. You choose to forgive them, give it to God, and He comes and heals the pain. If it's something kind of current and it's with a friend or a colleague or a family member or something, it's really important to actually try and speak to that person and bring it into discussion. You know, what's happened? Why has it happened? This is how you made them feel, because they might not be aware.
Yeah,
that they've
that's
hurt
true.
you. And we need grace to do that. You know, and
You
that's
hope
it.
that people aren't aware when they hurt you, though. You hope
Makes
that
it worse,
because
doesn't it?
if someone, I do genuinely have faith in humanity. I do. I know there's a lot of hurt in the world. There's a lot of evil in the world. A lot of bad stuff that happens. But I hope that I come from the standpoint of there are very few people that actually truly ever mean to actually hurt you. You know, that are truly out there to. I have to hopefully believe that is the case. Otherwise, what is the world we live in?
I think it is, and I think that for normal day-to-day hurts, I'm not talking about someone being murdered or what have you, normal day-to-day, a word here or a snidey comment there or what have you, they're the little foxes again, aren't they? They're the things that we need to go back and say, you need to know that actually hurt me or upset me. And it's usually because of our own issues.
Yeah.
Like say our own sensitivities.
Past experiences and
and it's that wall again. And people don't know there's a wall there and you've got a sensitive issue about something. And so it's really important to stay on top of those things, because if you don't, like you said before, you dwell on it, don't you? And you start making up all kinds of stuff in your head about, you know, why they were saying that and what they're thinking, and you can go down some very strange rabbit holes. So you really need to, as soon as,
nip it in the bud.
Get
It's
some
Brené Brown, isn't it, that really... she's great. If you've got any, look her up on TED Talks, because she's got some great TED Talks on shame. Maybe one week we'll do about shame, because that's just such a great topic to cover. But you know, she I think it's her that's like, you know, if you get up close to somebody, they're quite hard to hate. Which I feel like forgiveness is the thing where, like what you're saying, it's the same maybe of understanding that person where they're at.
Try to get closer to them.
If you get closer to, if you actually fight the feeling of wanting to back away, wanting to run away from them, never speak to them again, you know, turn that person into the view that they are a nasty person, they're horrible or whatever, all the time, which again, I really do have to have faith in humanity that there are very few people like that. If you actually fight that urge and try and come closer together, like Charlotte said, and try and understand where they're at, I suppose it's the same thing. They're hard to hate because you will see that they are broken. There are broken people that have hurt you. You know, I'm a broken person. You're a broken person.
I am.
I think you are. Polish your halo every now and then, but you know, hopefully, if you come close and you fight to reconcile, as it teaches us to in the Bible. I think you talk about that in Matthew 18.
Yeah, briefly mentioned.
You know, it teaches us to go, and if they're not up for sorting it out or apologising or whatever, then take someone else with you and help them to be a mediator and sort it out. So there's very practical advice in the Bible.
Yeah, there is.
Very, very practical advice.
Matthew 18 is probably
the practical
part
advice.
to go to, practical stuff,
Yeah,
the forgiveness.
I think over the whole talk, focusing back on Peter again, my favourite bit is the 3 times when Jesus meets them on the beach and sort of calls Peter aside, and it's after the denying Jesus 3 times gate.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, the comparison.
So redemptive though.
Yeah, bad night for Peter, and he was so broken and so, you know, looking at the reality of who he really was, his weakness and what have you, big mouth but weak, and for Jesus to come and redeem him and to go through 3 times, Peter, do you love me? Like, yes, of course I love you. To feed my sheep, I think, feed my lambs, and he asks him 3 times, and it's each time it's to cancel out the denials, the cockcrow.
And I think
denials.
repeating it as well, like, is almost, look, it's not like, yeah, of course I do. He's asking us, no, yeah, I do, and it's almost like reaffirming him as well, isn't it? And reaffirming that relationship, like really calling calling him deeper. So, it's very powerful.
It is powerful. Forgiveness is powerful.
Yeah.
Across the board. Let's do more of it. Yay.
Easy peasy.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been very challenging, and this topic is always challenging. If anything that we've spoke about today has hit anyone in any form, get in contact. That doesn't have to be on the public forum. Just get in contact with us privately if that's preferred. But yeah, this is I feel like this one's gonna be impactful, gonna be deep. And does anyone have anything else they want to get in before we move on to the hot gospel?
No.
I don't think so. Have you spoke about the chosen here before?
Oh, well, I think we have, because John and Julia talk about the chosen all the time.
The chosen's a good little, like, well, it's a drama, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
About Jesus' life and stuff. So
yeah.
You'd
So
be able to...
I'm sure we'll just QVT or something here, because John will have some image on the screen, a little clip or something, maybe like above my head or whatever, of the chosen right now. But yeah,
it's great.
It's a free
YouTube,
program.
Yeah, that
you can watch.
Download
it's an app.
it.
Is it?
Yeah, I think there's
it's an app.
You can download it. You can watch it on your phone or your devices, or if you've got Chromecast or similar, you can put it onto your telly.
Yeah.
And it's working through the life of Jesus, but how he chose his disciples and the relationships. But it's done in, although it's obviously set, like they're wearing stuff like they would have worn like 2,000 years ago and doing stuff. It's very contemporary language, but the relationships are very contemporary.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant. I mean, obviously it's drama.
So just a bit of fresh perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And, you can then go back and read the Gospels, and like you've done, you said it's really interesting following somebody's life through the 4 different Gospels. But yeah, I find it fascinating, and it's lovely to see how Jesus is with them.
It makes it more real, rather than just reading about it.
Yeah. So definitely recommend that.
Things in the description that will be below. The Shack, I'll put a link to that somewhere. Brené Brown, TED Talks, really good. Mm-hmm. The Chosen.
Yeah.
There are things to take away from today about forgiveness. So yeah, but thank you both. But now on to Hot Gospel.
Hot Gospel. Woohoo!
If anything in the Hot Gospel resonated with you today, do get in touch with us. But now we're on to our final part of this episode, which is going to be some sung worship, which was actually recorded at our celebration service at the weekend, which was really good. So I've already experienced this song. I can tell you that it's good. So we'll move on to that now, but it's bye from us for this episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
See ya.
See ya.
I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good. been so, so good to me. I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. Cause you have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't turn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me.